Okay, so today's question. My state has legalized marijuana. So what does that mean for my restaurant's drug policy? Well, it actually depends on two things. First of all, whether the marijuana is recreational or medicinal. And then secondly, whether the marijuana is being used on the job or off the job. If it's being used on the job, you absolutely can prohibit it. You never have to allow someone to be under the influence while they're at work. And in fact, if you are allowing it either by decree or omission, maybe you've never told them that they can use it, but you kind of know that they are and you're letting that slide, you could actually end up being liable if that person ends up hurting somebody while they're under the influence. So at work, yes, you can, and frankly, you really should be prohibiting marijuana use. Now, if it's off duty, it's a little bit of a different story. Most states that have legalized marijuana for recreational purposes still allow employers to enforce zero tolerance drug policies and to fire employees for off-duty use. However, it's worth noting that the state of Maine actually prohibits employers from either refusing to hire employees or disciplining an employee for off-duty recreational marijuana use. And I mention that because, well, obviously if your restaurant is in Maine, you're going to want to factor that into your drug policy. But secondly, because as these laws continue to evolve, they sort of do so in trends. And as marijuana continues to become legalized in more states, and particularly if it becomes legalized under federal law, it is very difficult for an employer to police what takes place outside of the workplace. Within your workplace, and particularly in an at-will employment state, you are the kings and the queens of your castle. But outside of the workplace, it can begin to implicate some privacy issues when you are trying to overreach and control what your employees are doing when they are either not at work or at a work event. So this is really a good opportunity for employers to reevaluate their drug policies. And if you've always had a zero tolerance policy and you're now in a state that has legalized it, you can ask yourself, what was the reasoning behind this policy? Did I create a zero tolerance policy because I didn't want my employees to engage in what at the time was illegal behavior in using marijuana? Or is it because I really care what my employees are doing outside of the workplace? And if you do, you can still, for now in most states, prohibit off-duty recreational marijuana use, but you want to make sure that you're staying aware of the laws and any potential changes to the contrary, and make sure that if that does come down the pike, that you're ready for it. And then there's medical marijuana. Remember again that you do not have to allow somebody to be under the influence of marijuana at work, whether it is recreational or medicinal marijuana. But you may have to allow an employee to use medical marijuana off duty under certain state disability laws. Right now, it's just a handful of states that either have laws that expressly prohibit the discrimination against medicinal marijuana patients or have had courts that have interpreted the existing law to cover the use of medical marijuana. But the point is that it's something that you have to be aware of. And if you have an employee that is using medical marijuana, check your state disability law and see if you are required to allow them to use it off duty as part of a reasonable accommodation. And even if you're not, make sure that you are staying aware and understanding that really the key to being able to prevent employee lawsuits is knowing the law and understanding how it applies in your particular situation to your restaurant.